Hey, this is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Monday. It's December 1st. Hard to believe that we're wrapping up the final month of the trading year. It's probably going to continue to be slow, although today was not too bad. There was enough volume today. There wasn't a lot of movement. In the end, I think this was a range type day with a downward bias. You can see that each of these highs are getting lower all the way across here. We finally made a new low and then kind of rallied up, but we still found resistance there and then made a lower high here before we sold on off in the afternoon. So it really has a downward bias. I believe there was a two-tiered channel here. We had a break, a move to a new low, and then it kind of reversed, even though it didn't rally strongly. We had one good move right here. I think the sellers finally threw in the hat right here, and there was a gap. Notice this gap right here. That's in the overnight. But what you have to consider too is this is where the market closed on the previous trading day, and the market doesn't open again till 8:30 on the regular session. So the difference, and that would mean all that price action in between there is not there on the regular session. So that's where you would have seen it open. I believe that's the 8:30 bar. 8:30 bar is right there. So that's where the market would have opened, and notice the price is 2059.50, but yet it closed the previous day. This little red line, actually that may not be correct. It closed up here because now the red line is showing today's um, today's close. So are showing previous days. It says previous days closed, but those lines are incorrect because the market is showing closed today and reopened. So just ignore that. You can see that's where it closed, and then it reopened here during the overnight. But at 8:30, it opened right here. So there's a gap between this point and where it closed up there, and that's what I'm talking about where it has to. That's the gap I'm talking about. So sometimes people have a hard time if there's no gap during the overnight, they have a hard time understanding what I'm talking about. But hopefully that makes sense, because if you're just looking at the regular session charts, all this overnight stuff is not there. It just ends here and picks back up right here. And so there's a big gap right there in the prices. So that's what I mean when I say there's a gap in the between the overnight and the regular session. So hope that makes sense. But anyway, let's move on to the trades. I'm going to make this a little larger just so it's easier to see. But I really played this as a trend down until here, until we bounced a couple more times down here. And then you almost could have played this similar to a range. There weren't a lot of really good trades after maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. All these trades are kind of iffy. It just really wasn't clear what the market was going to do here. So you had to be really careful. There's actually a short right here. Um, I like that for a short, really, to be honest. Notice it's a first entry pullback. There's a second entry, but it broke higher first and then turned and went out the downside. So it's like a failed second entry long. And it was good enough for a scalp, and then it reversed, and then you could have treated it like a failed second entry short, because we were trying to get a new high anyway, and I was looking for a long, so you could have gotten fooled right here. That's a huge bar, and you might have gotten fooled right there. It didn't quite close on its high, so because it was kind of right in the middle, and I think you were better off just to kind of wait and see what happened. And but you were looking for a long at this point, so that's the kind of confusing part about that. But notice there's a lot of overlapping bars. You probably, if you got tricked there when it turned and went down, you couldn't do anything but exit. So don't let it come all the way down to here to exit. I would have exited when it turned down if you didn't get fooled there. So I meant to circle that kind of in lavender just so I wouldn't forget to talk about it. But I really liked it for a short. I wasn't crazy about it for a long, but you're looking for longs. But once you saw the trap, I kind of liked it for a short because it wouldn't be completely out of character for the market to make another leg down to a new low. We got one leg down after the break here, and then the you can see the trend line is just kind of holding on both sides. The market just is unsure. But once they got the short trap and it went on and made the new high, because you got your two breaks of this channel going up here. So that's what made it a little confusing there, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. First trade I saw was right here. This looked like a trading range with kind of a downward bias. I originally had this drawn a little bit steeper coming off those first two swings, but I believe it was right across here in the end. Still, that gives you, it was tempting to go short right here, but I think you need to wait on a second entry, which doesn't come till here. And that's a nice bearish bar. It's hard to ignore that bar right there. Even though it didn't go out below the other side, it closes on its very low. And it opened on its, it closed and opened. So it had that little gap until it backed up. This is one you could have gotten filled on a stop or even a limit order right there at the bottom. But I think you're better off just to put your stop there and try to get filled on it. And if it went on a tick or two without you, you might have tried a limit order. It didn't have a lot of time because it dropped on down pretty good. Easy scalp, and then it reverses and comes back, but it turns down right there off that line again, and there's another big bearish bar. So I like that one for a short. It kind of got hung up there, and so it would have been a little bit concerning there. And you might have gotten shaken out of that one. Then it turns up again and fails and turns down. So there's a long trap there, but it's not a very good one. So I drew that one in green. But look, I don't think you want to go short below that bar, but look how bearish that is. So you might have wanted to go short right there, and at the very least, you might have wanted to use a limit order, a tick or two or three back in there, and it would have gotten filled and then turned down. And now you got the failed second entry long. Notice that new high, pullback first entry, pullback second entry. So there's a failed second entry long there. That's a nice trap. And you don't know that it's going to do this, but you figure you're going to go test this low here. And man, this thing, the bottom just falls out of it. So nice short right there. That was probably the trade of the day, to be honest. And then you're coming off the low side. You get a first entry short, a pullback. And notice that little second entry short. Not a very good setup. You may or may not have had that trend line there yet. You could have drawn it right off those closes, but it really wasn't apparent until you got these, and then you drag it down. But by that time, you've missed this trade. But there's a failed second entry short that reverses and goes out the top. I like that for a long because you're probably headed back to the upper side. And this is looking really rangy. Look how flat the EMA is. So you figure you're probably headed back up here, at least back to the trend line. If it didn't look so flat and rangy, I'd probably say you want to skip this one, even though you know it's probably coming up here, mainly because it's not a good idea to counter trend trade. But I think in this case, you know, everything's flat enough, and you've had this big oversell off here. So, and you're looking for a new high on this channel here, and you could have had this now by the time you get this break here. And it was kind of tempting to go short there, but you didn't have a break of this little channel right here yet. And I was even looking at the possibility, I could never make it fit though, that there was something right up through there. So there was that possibility, but I could never make it really fit. I think you see there's just no good fit for that right there. So I really think this one was the correct one. And you get your break, move to a new high, and then you get a first entry pullback, and this is a second entry short. You're looking for a new low now, and you notice we do get it. So I liked, it went out the top first. I liked going short right there. I drew it in green because it's not a perfect setup. You know, I would have liked to have seen it test that high one more time and then make a little trap, but you just didn't get it. But it did go higher first and then turn back down and go out the lower side. So, and again, you don't know it's going to do that. So this is just a little bit aggressive. It's not a bad trade. but it's not a perfect trade. And it's really kind of like a breakout pullback. Notice those matching lows, and it turns higher and just goes a tick higher, then turns back down and goes out. So it's kind of like a breakout pullback short as well. We were looking for a reversal. Heads down, then it tries to go higher again. And even though this has moved down a good bit, I actually don't have it on here, but there's a short-term trend line right down through here, like so. You can see how that's holding prices fairly nicely through there, and you get a close outside. It's not a very strong one, move to a new low, and then it reverses. But I like this one just simply because it's a failed second entry long. It does turn down right off that short-term trend channel line. Went out the top first, then it turns and goes lower. Easy scalp, and I didn't think it was worth entering from this point on. So, okay, then of course, you got your break with the bigger channel here. You move to a new low, and this is where you got to watch out for these failures. And first of all, you don't want to go short below that big green bar. So you got to wait. And by waiting, you see the failed second entry short, and then it turns up right there, and it's right off that line. So it's a nice failed second entry short. Expect exactly where you're expecting one. This is when you're expecting it. After this move down, the break, new low, and the bigger channel break and new low, that's where where the second entries fail. And you're expecting it to come back up here and maybe even reverse or come all the way, try to fill that gap. And this is a nice move up, and then it just kind of gets hung up. There's a short right here, but I just think it's too risky. It's too close to this trend line right here, and you haven't had a break of it yet. So this is the first break of it. And you really wouldn't want to go long, probably. That's a nice reversal bar there. If you'd got a break above that, I'd say you probably got to go long there. But notice prices never break above it. And then they turn down again, and that little one tick trap, and then it turns up. And so I liked it then. You're looking for a new high here. And this is where it got confusing again, as I was telling you about. It would be really tempting to go long right there. The one thing that might have alerted you to stay, notice that bullish reversal bar, and it couldn't break above it on the next bar. It took the next bar to break above it, and that would have been a good enough reason to maybe stay out of it, because there's 1, 2, 3, counting that little one, 4 bars kind of stacked up side by side, and notice how no bars breaking above the next one. If it would have broke above this one on this bar, it would have been hard to ignore that one. But that's really your only real clue right there is the fact that it broke higher first and then turned down. So when it broke higher and turned down, I liked it for a short. But hopefully that makes sense on why you might have been hesitant on that long, because if it's going to be a good trade, it really should have broke higher on that bar right there. And when it couldn't, that's telling you something. So, and then when it fails down here, right along the same area where prices have bounced, or it's kind of been acting as support and resistance on both sides of that, and it fails and bounces. And that's a second entry long. Notice a new high, first entry, pullback, second entry. So, because this swing is higher than this one. So that's another reason to kind of wonder about that one, even though it's a second entry counting from this direction, but it's not counting off the highs, to be honest. So there's a couple other reasons there that maybe you might be leery of that one. But then you get the failed second entry, and look how bearish that bar is. So this looks really bearish, and what happens is most people are scared to go short right there where they should, and so they wait till down here, and they get trapped, and it turns up, and they all have to exit. And look at it go. It's a nice trap right there. And then I marked this one. This is almost similar to this pattern right here. It's kind of a little double top up there, and notice that you got all those matching lows across there, and it tries to go higher. It doesn't break above though, and then it turns down, but that's pretty bearish. I don't know if you could have got filled on this. Notice that there's a gap. Notice it It closed on its low, opened, and continued to go down. So I don't know if you'd have got filled there, if you could have got your stop. Now, if you were paying attention, you might have already had your stop there. That's probably the only way you got filled on that. And man, this thing takes off. And there is a failed second entry long there, but I don't think you want to go short right in there. It is a trout. I'm going to go ahead and mark it. I'm not crazy about it. I'm going to leave it green too. So, and it would have worked, but it's just a little iffy, and notice it bounces again. Um, and if you drew your little short-term trend line down through there, I'm going to say it's more like that, and that's probably the first close outside, and then it turns down and makes it slow and then reverses. So just see how we get it to fit on the other side. This might have been a little flatter than that. That's how I always check mine. I mean, you keep checking them, and yeah, if you do it that way, you really don't get a close outside of it. So that might have kept you in that one. And then it reverses, and then that's your first break, and then it comes down and makes the new low before the day's over. So, yeah, it's kind of, looking at it like that, that might keep you in that one. But still, it's going short right into this kind of support area right here. So it's still a little bit iffy. I'm still going to leave it green. So, but that's what I saw today. Again, I believe you had a two-tiered channel working down, a break, moved to a new low, and then the market corrected. It wasn't a real strong correction, but it corrected. And in the end, it's just kind of a range day with a downward bias. And you can notice this. Make sure you make note of that if you didn't hear me say it earlier. Look how each one of these highs is lower than the previous ones. This one is about equal, but it still couldn't make a new high, and then this one's lower. So this is what's telling you really that, you got a downward bias and you're making lower lows down here until right here after you had your break and you moved to a new low. So just keep that in mind. And it's really about all there is to talk about today. So I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving holiday. I had a nice break. It was nice to come back today and have, at least have some volume today. We didn't have a whole lot of movement, but there's enough moves here in each direction to make some money. And so I hope you had a good trading day. We'll be back to do it again tomorrow, but I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.